Hello everybody and welcome to Ramble Reacts. Manchester United start the season with a big old win. It's Tuesday 15th of August. I'm Marcus Speller.
And I'm Luke Moore.
Luke, I've realised we may get a knock on the door from the Trades Description Act, as I described that as a massive win for Manchester United.
I don't think the Trades Description Act's a person that comes to people's houses, mate. I think you'll be very, very unlucky indeed for that to happen.
True. I mean, you could argue it was a massive win.
It was a big win. I think you were right the first time.
Yeah. I'm not a Wolverhampton Wanderers football club fan. I've got nothing against them. I was neutral watching the game. I can't imagine what Wolves fans are feeling this morning. Manchester United won, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. How on earth did they not even get a point?
It's a heist. It's an absolute... Do you know what? Do you know what really showed how much of a heist it was for me was that a couple of minutes from the end, I saw Erik Ten Hag talking to Harry Maguire, and I saw Harry Maguire go outside Old Trafford and get the getaway car ready.
Is that all Maguire is? A getaway driver now?
Well, I wouldn't choose him. I wouldn't choose him for that.
No.
It was an absolute stripy jumper job, as I'm a fan of saying. That's why I think what you said at the top of this about it being a massive win is accurate, because Manchester United will come in. You talk about Wolves fans this morning. Everyone associated with Manchester United today will be thinking, I tell you what, we got out of there with something, and that was pretty difficult rowing, pretty stormy waters, pretty choppy stuff, and they come out of there with a win. And I think there was a time not that long ago, in fact, from memory, the opening game of last season even, where they get overwhelmed and they lose the game. This time around, in quite similar circumstances, they've won the game. So, you don't want to read too much into a single game or a single result, particularly not on the opening weekend of the season. But, I mean, if you're a Man United fan there, you are relieved, but also, of course, absolutely delighted. But what I would say is this. The game ended the way it ended, and what I mean by that is the second half, Wolves were very, very dominant, and they, basically put Man United to the sword. It was a case of, if it was a 90s, electronic pop artist, it'd be everything but the goal, wouldn't it? But in the first half, I actually thought Man United warmed to their task quite nicely. They started to build momentum in the first half towards half-time.
You're being generous. It was all uninspiring.
I thought half-time came at a really an annoying time for Manchester United. I thought they grew into the game okay, but they ended the game very, very badly. They were completely second best in the second half. They looked incredibly soft-centred in the middle when you look at the profile of player they had in central midfield. Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro. That should not be a soft-centred midfield, and it looked like it was.
Matheus Cunha was like a hot knife through butter.
He was amazing.
It was just... I didn't realise, but he is, I think, behind Erling Haaland, the best player in the Premier League. It was absolutely astonishing. He
was super positive, very direct, and difficult to deal with. He was excellent to watch.
He was absolutely different class. By the way, to back up some of the stuff you said about Wolves being dominant, Wolves' 23 shots in that game last night was the second most in a Premier League game at Old Trafford in recorded history since 2003-2004. That's what you're dealing with here. I mean, it was... You just thought to yourself, come on, just take one of these chances. And there was Manchester United were blocking. I mean, they were camped out in their own area for the last few minutes of the game, for crying out loud. But it was so interesting. Wolves looked very dangerous on the break. Cunha was at the forefront of that. Neto was causing problems as well. But you saw Cunha, there was a couple of times, and I understood why he made the pass when he burst forward. But when a player's got that momentum going, when a player is driving forward and is that dangerous, what you actually want is you want your forward players to get out the way and drag the defenders apart so he can go for it. And to be fair, the other players kind of did that. But he seemed reluctant to want to have a go himself. And it was only really when Hwang came on, who thought, had a few shots himself. That's Wolves' problem over the last few seasons. It's been a while since Wolves were kind of free scoring, if you like. and you can see perhaps with one or two players, maybe it's like, well, okay, we'll try and put it on a plate to make sure that we score here. And you look around and there isn't many goals in that team. Sasha, is it Kalazic who came on?
Yeah,
he was signed in 2022 last year.
He got a really bad injury,
horrific
straight away,
injury.
basically.
Yeah, he's the only one really. If you look at kind of numbers, if you're looking just at pure data, he's the only one who looks like he could become a bit of a goal scorer for them. But he's still kind of he's still untested really in the Premier League. He's only got one appearance. Obviously, coming back from that injury,
he's not someone you would class as like a real prolific goal scorer. I mean, he's basically had one decent goal scoring season for Stuttgart in the Bundesliga, and he's never really replicated that at any kind of level. And he's 26 now, and he's not even really scored a huge amount of goals at international level either. I think he's basically, if you look at the goals he scored for Austria, then pretty much they all came in 1 year, which is the same year he had a really great year for Stuttgart. And other than that, it's been fairly slim pickings really. So I'm not slating him. He's had a difficult time of injuries, and he looks an interesting player. But if you're using him as the reliable goal scoring one, that probably tells its own story, because Wolves were the lowest scoring team in the Premier League last season, I think. So that's a problem. And you can see, based on last night, how much of a problem it was, because even though, United I thought were okay in the first half, they grew into it, they were still very sloppy, and they still gave up a lot of opportunities, and Wolves didn't really look like they were confident in front of goal, and that was typified really by, although Cunha was fantastic, he had that chance where he hit the outside of the post. Yeah. You have to score there. You have to score there. I don't think it really matters how incisive you're going to be with your running and your counter-attacking football. He's direct, he's positive, he commits defenders, and that's really a great thing, of course. But if you've got no one to finish those moves, and you can't finish them yourself, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah, and I have a slight concern for Wolves. I think because of what happened with Lopetegui not that long ago, I think a lot of people would have been quite concerned for them in general, and perhaps that concern is still there. But after that performance, you think, oh, hang on a minute, they've actually got a bit of quality in there.
Yeah.
They've got great pace as well. And so it will be interesting to see how O'Neill sets them up against teams where they're more even on paper, or perhaps
he deserves
even
great
better.
credit though, Marcus, doesn't he, based on last
I'll
night?
tell you what,
he's only been there 5 minutes.
He's been there 5 minutes, and he set them up so well against Manchester United. And like I say, they took that Manchester United midfield apart in the second half. But let's go straight to a moment in the game which was a very controversial one. After Wolves were knocking on the door, I thought to myself, oh, brilliant, they're going to get a penalty. Surely they're not going to mess this up.
How would you describe the incident?
I would... Well, you described Manchester United getting 3 points as a heist. You could describe it as a smash and grab, and the smash was very much what Onana did to, I forget which Wolves player it was. How that was not given as a penalty, I just do not know.
And is the referee like the referee in WWE?
Must be.
Where they're distracted by the tag team partner, and then the other one gets the chair out and smashes them over the head. And
he smashed the VAR over the head as well, because, I mean, like...
Well, the VAR officials definitely had some kind of blow to the head, for sure, because that is a real issue, and believe me, I mean, we're not just talking to each other here, we're talking to our wonderful listeners, our amazing family of ramblers, our listening community, and I want to speak to them directly when I say...
And we love all of you.
We do. We don't want to talk about VAR. We don't want to talk about this bullshit, right? Trust it. I know sometimes you're probably on your way to work at the moment and you think, oh, please don't do 10 minutes on VAR. We don't want to do 10 minutes either. We don't want to. No. But if we don't, it's like a dereliction of duty. Yeah. But it's on them. It's not on us. And I would say this. If you can... It's really hard to put into words. If you cannot see that is a penalty, you shouldn't be anywhere near the game, let alone be a ref. You know, I think if you were in the crowd...
People who have never watched a game of football who would have seen that and gone, cool, that was a bit strong, wasn't it? Surely he's got to be punished there.
Absolutely. I mean, someone got in touch on X, some great stuff on X at the moment, Marcus, I'm sure you agree, and said that it would have been a foul in rugby.
Yeah.
Because in rugby, technically, the tackle, you've got to wrap your arms around the player. And I'm desperately trying to find who it was. A great user of X.
Was it Elon Musk himself?
It could have been. It could have been. Oh, it's Ben Stanley. Hello to you, Ben. He says, I think it would have even been a foul in rugby because Onana failed to wrap his arms around the player.
Yeah.
So it's a foul in all sports.
Would it have been a foul in tennis?
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah, but you can't go over the net. And I respect Onana going in face and chest first. It was brave. But here's the thing. Goalkeepers have a tradition historically of getting away with that kind of stuff. Like, it was never really talked about. I can remember who was a particular. I tell you, Hugo Lloris was quite bad for it. Even in his pomp, go in with a fist, be late, punch a guy on the head, nothing happens. It's like, if we're talking about kind of protecting players and head injuries being a real bad problem, we can't really have goalkeepers punching people in the head. And this was an example of that. And here's the thing: is just a final point on this. It shows a couple of things. Just two final points I want to make before you come in. One is that VAR was designed for specifically this kind of decision, right? Overturning of obvious errors, right? That's kind of point number one. The second point is it shows up the fundamental flaw in how VAR operates because, as you well know, Marcus, if that's given as a penalty on the field, that's never overturned.
Yeah.
A VAR official's not overturning that.
Yeah.
So
I'm afraid
it depends so much on the decision that's given by the referee in the first instance, who himself clearly feels undermined by the VAR by saying, "Oh, the VAR will sort it out, so I haven't got to worry about it."
Yeah, Man United fans are going to go, "Oh, shut up!" But I'm sorry, it goes into that sort of theory, belief, whatever you want to call it, that they get all the decisions at Old Trafford. Now, I know that harks back to the 90s when they were the team at the top, but that is just stunning stuff. How you would say that if that was at the other end of the field, it would be given. But anyway, I don't want to dwell on that too much. I want to say that for the Wolves fans who are really pissed off this morning and listening to this.
Who had? Sorry, Max. Before you move on, who among us had match week 1 for the first PGMOL apology of the season? Because Howard Webb, his phone is off the hook at the moment.
Well, it should be.
Yeah.
When he turns that back on, he wants to put it on mute because it's going to go crazy. But it wasn't given. Manchester United they win 1-0. It's unconvincing, but they got the win. Now, where do you go from here in the league season? Manchester United will kick on. They surely won't be this poor with the players that they have. And I understand it's early days, blah-de-blah-de-blah, betting in one or two players. Wolves, where do they go from here? Well, they would take some encouragement, but you still think that they may be looking over their shoulder this season. Some might have them in a relegation scrap. I don't think they will be in the relegation scrap. I think they'll just be that little bit in front of it. But where do you see, we'll start with Manchester United, Luke, where do you see them going from here? Because I think a lot of people have high hopes for Manchester United this season.
Yeah, and I think I'll be one of those. I mean, I don't really have any hopes for them. It doesn't really bother me.
High predictions or expectations.
Yeah, I think they will. I think there's a platform that they've put in there under Ten Hag, and I think they'll build on it. I don't think you can read it. I always find the first weekend of the season particularly kind of pointless in reading too much into it, to be honest. I think, like I said at the start of this, they lost 2-1 at home to Brighton on the first day last season, and they were outplayed as well, and they got beaten. To last night, they've been outplayed and they've won. And I think Ten Hag as a kind of manager, it seems to me that when they put in performances like that, he kind of gets amongst them and gets a reaction, and they seem to do pretty well. Last season, I think it was pretty rare. I mean, they followed up that Brighton game last season with that horrendous defeat against Brentford, right? And then everything started to change. And then after that, it took them till May to lose back-to-back games, right? So they've got a tradition under him, or if you want to call it a tradition, or at least a trend for bouncing back quite well. And then their fixtures after this game, I mean, they go to Spurs on Saturday, and I'll be at that game, so it'll be interesting to see them. And they're at home to Forest, away to Arsenal, and at home to Brighton. It's just difficult to say. I mean, it's very competitive at the top of the table, but like I said, they've got a platform, won a cup last season, got into the Champions League. They'll feel like they're back in the position they want to be, which is competing and playing in the Champions League. I just wonder, based on that performance, if you can read a bit into it, you'd want them to get that central midfield balance right, because it looked to me like Martinez and Varane were a little bit exposed. They looked very soft-centred. Obviously, the way Varane celebrated his goal, they knew that they'd got away with one there. They couldn't believe their luck, right? The celebration was massive. Like, for a home goal against Wolves, that was a massive celebration, because they knew they're up against it. They knew they're getting run ragged.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's a real positive thing they got out of it with a win, because all the cliches say that, if you can play that badly and still get a win, you must be doing something okay. But I would say that probably tells you more about the toothlessness of Wolves and the lack of a pointy end than it does about Man United. But we shall see. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I if I was a Manchester United fan, I'd be a bit concerned. They've got quality in that squad, there's no doubt about it, and Ten Hag's attention to detail and meticulous planning has been well documented, certainly in the last month or two, or since he's arrived, really. But look at that side who played. You've got the back four that you would probably expect. You've got Casemiro in front of them. And then you have Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount are in there, and you've got Garnacho, Rashford and Antony up top. Now, Christian Eriksen came on, but Martial was an unused sub. Sancho came on, and McTominay came on for the last couple of minutes. McTominay still could move. I believe West Ham are still interested, but I'll leave that there. If they... Casemiro's going to be exhausted come the end of this season.
He's spent his whole career like that, hasn't he?
Well, yeah.
He loves it.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, he was... When you're playing with Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, you are going to have a lot of rest now and then. Give the ball to old Modders, and you're going to be... you probably won't see the ball or any danger for a good few minutes. And I think Gary O'Neill would have looked at that midfield and thought, they're soft. Like they've got Bruno Fernandes doesn't want to be tracking back. He wants to be going forward and getting on the score sheet. Mason Mount is an attacking player. Some people would say his best position was maybe out on one of the flanks. Perhaps not. I think he can operate in the centre and out wide pretty well, doing both jobs. But I think that they could be overrun, and I think other teams will see this. I mean, imagine if that was against, say, a Newcastle. Do you know what I mean? They'd have been absolutely destroyed. I mean,
they were playing against the least potent team in the league, based on
exactly.
Last season, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Any other team, apart from maybe the promoted sides and one or two others, are going to have a field day there.
Totally,
for sure. And here's something I find quite interesting about Man United. If you're going to go down that road, that kind of conversation around them, and look at the team they started the game with for an opening day of the season, is it that inspiring after the money they spent and after the size of club they are? They're starting a game with Garnacho, who, is a prospect, and who is an exciting young player, I suppose. He's got a lot of potential. He's only 19. But him and Antony on each flank. Now, I know Antony costs a lot of money. He's probably the most predictable attacking player Man United have ever had. At one point, he actually went down the outside and tried to cross with his right foot, and it was comical. For a player who's cost that much money playing for Man United, honestly, it was a proper Sunday league swinger of a fucking weak foot. So I think if I was United and a United fan, I think about the tradition of attacking football, the amount of money they spend on attacking players, and you're starting the season with Garnacho and Antony. Is it a bit disappointing? I'd say it probably is. I know they've got players out injured, and I know that Haaland will come in when he's fit. I know that perhaps it's not worked out for Sancho. I personally think Mason Mount's best position is as an attacking midfield player 10 behind the striker. That's, for me, is his best position. I think if he plays out wide, he kind of drifts in and out of games a wee bit.
But he's not really going to get that position with Bruno Fernandes in the side. They should probably step on each other's toes,
Well, Marcus, you'll be unsurprised to hear that I wasn't consulted when they decided to sign him. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting to sign him. I'm just saying his best position is probably, in my view, that position. And Fernandes is always going to play there, of course.
Yeah, I mean, look, Rasmus Haaland was a lot of money, and he's a prospect. For him to come in and score 20+ goals a season, he could do it, but it's still a big ask as well. He'll be back in there. So he was seen in director's box with Johnny Evans and Tom Heaton, by the way, which is quite nice. And I tell you something, if you're going to watch a Man United game with two Man United players. I think you definitely pick Tom Heaton, Luke Moore. You know I'm a big fan of him.
I do know you're a big fan of that, and I think speaking of goalkeepers, I think apart from the penalty thing, which is just an error of judgment from Onana, I thought he was excellent. Apart from that, made some great saves. I can see why United wanted him. I think he's a great goalkeeper. I think he'll have a good season. I suppose the answer to my own question about the wide players is just that when Haaland comes and is fit, I suppose they're going to put Rashford on one of those flanks, and Haaland will play through the middle, and then they'll look a little bit better. But yeah, midfield's a concern. I thought Wolves were good. I thought they were dynamic. I thought the fact that Gary O'Neill can get so many good ideas across in such a short amount of time is a compelling argument as an audition for him to be the coach and the reason they hired him. I think
Well, Luke,
remains to be seen how they'll get on. But I mean, so far so good, right?
I'm going to butt in there and say that you say it's good audition and all that to be the coach. I mean, he's already got the job, so he doesn't need to audition for it. But perhaps he's auditioning for something bigger, because we've got a tweet, an X, if you will, from Nicholas, who says Gary O'Neill is leading us to World Cup glory in 2026 in the US of A, baby.
I tell you what, as someone
we should say, Nicholas, it is being hosted in Canada and Mexico as well.
Yeah, come on, a bit of respect for America's hat and America's beard. As someone who grew up watching Gary O'Neill from the Fratton end at Portsmouth, is one of my favourite midfield players. He was very popular down there, and I was sad that he moved on. But that is the old wheeler and dealer for you. It'd be amazing to see him manage England. Imagine that. I think it's a bit of a long shot, to be honest.
I think it's early days. It's safe to say. David Coates, or in the spirit of Wolves, perhaps David Coates, said that Wolves were brilliant, but then went all Frank Spencer in front of goal. United with another lucky win. I mean, look, Wolves. Yeah, it is the old thing with them with not being able to put the ball in the box. But like I say, I think if you're a Wolves fan, having changed manager. We spoke about O'Neill's appointment, and I was certainly one that said it was a little bit uninspiring, perhaps. But I wish him all the best, because he cuts a fine figure, and he's one of your favourite ever players, Luke. So he'll always be welcome at my table.
Kind of you.
Yes.
People will be surprised at how kind you're being there, given how mean you were to me yesterday. But thank you very much. You pulled it round.
Yeah. Well, as I say, from tough love to kind love.
I'm not sure if he'd want to come to your house for dinner, would he? A bit weird.
Not at the moment, with two very small kids. But where was I going with this? Gary O'Neill, yes. So I think basically the long and short of it is Wolves fans, I'm sure, were probably a bit concerned before a ball was kicked this season. After the match last night, okay, it's nil point, but I think they'll be much more encouraged by that. But it's all about getting the ball in the back of the net. Did you find it strange that Adama Traore left Wolverhampton Wanderers? I mean, not one for getting on the score sheet, admittedly, but he joined Fulham on a free transfer, of course. And
how do you feel about it as a Fulham guy?
I'm quite happy about it. I enjoyed the way they announced it. They just posted a photo of a little bottle of Johnson's baby oil on the wooden seats at Craven Cottage. As we know, he likes to oil up. If you see,
could be interpreted a number of ways, couldn't it?
Yeah, we're particularly excited about this one. He's a beautiful boy. Do you know what? I saw Traore. It's always best to see him under the lights, because you really get the shine off his skin of the baby oil.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a decent signing for Fulham. I do, but people always say, "Oh, but look at his numbers. He's not, this, that, and the other." I think he's a threat. I think he's good. But I was just, I suppose, slightly surprised that he left Wolves. But obviously, wanted a different challenge.
Yeah, I think to me, his career seems like an endless supply of managers that think they can get a tune out of him, right?
Yeah.
And he was at Wolves for a long old time. He had that kind of random loan spell at Barcelona, didn't he? Where he didn't really contribute a huge amount from what I can tell. Mm-hmm. Obviously started his career out of Barcelona as well. Went from kind of just quite a slight figure to a massive pump up, and loves carrying the ball at his feet. But I think the end product thing is a real concern. I mean, he's whatever he is now, 26, 27, I think he might be now.
Yeah.
And it's just a case that Marco Silva will go, right, he's devastating with the ball at his feet. He can come on late in games and really stretch a team. But I think there does come a point where you're starting to question the end product more, and I think fairly so. But then, on the other hand, he seems like he's got all the tools. And I think it wouldn't be a massive surprise if he started to add assists and goals to his game. And all of a sudden, if he does that, which I appreciate is probably the hardest thing to do in football, but if he was to suddenly start doing that, I mean, that's a devastating signing for them. And it's probably worth them taking a punt on it because it's free, right? I mean, more bodies in there. They thought they were going to lose Willian. Or they had. Did they lose Willian in the end?
Yeah, no, he's there. He is there.
He's there. But so it's just extra cover, I suppose, in those wide areas. And I think the fans, he's the kind of player fans love because he's so fucking fast and so exciting when he gets the ball. It's just it depends how often you're prepared to let him fucking spill your Bovril when he puts a cross in.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously he'll link up with Raul Jimenez. I mean, I think it's good for Fulham because they lost Manor Solomon, who did pretty well, and Daniel James went back to Leeds. So, I mean, Daniel James scored 3 goals in 23 appearances for Fulham. You'd say he was an upgrade on that.
It's remarkable, though, that Wolves would manage to be quite that profligate against Man United and didn't even have Adama Traoré playing. Like, you think to yourself, that could have been more wasteful, actually, if they'd picked Traoré. Which is remarkable to think of.
I am gutted, and as I say, I've never even nearly been a Wolves fan before, and I cannot believe it. But anyway, we must move on. Mentioned very briefly Scott McTominay, and may have even mentioned Harry Maguire for some reason earlier. There's still little bits and pieces. Are they going to go to West Ham or they're not? I really want Maguire to go. Just please leave that club, Harry. They're disrespecting you, for crying out loud. But while we're on the subject of Manchester United and now West Ham, Luke Moore, former Manchester United midfielder Jesse Lingard, is apparently back in training at West Ham, and there are very faint rumours that he might be offered a contract. Come on.
Very faint rumours.
Bloody
which is
come
all
on.
you need. You are the faint rumour.
I tell you what, like, Lingard in a West Ham shirt, it's some of the finest Barclays we've ever seen.
I tell you what. Well, I'm gonna disagree with that straight away. But do you
It was
remember the
good.
saga of Lingard signing for Forest? Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was an absolute saga. Right. Was he go? Was he not going to go? Was he going to stay at West Ham after that amazing loan spell? What was going to happen? He eventually signs for Forest on a 1-year deal, becomes their highest paid player, and then does the square root of absolutely fuck all. And everyone forgets about him instantly, apart from you, who's still got a tiny candle for him being held up that's not quite been extinguished yet.
Yeah. I should say that he, before he started training at West Ham, he was apparently training with Inter Miami as well. So he could just be doing the rounds. Do you know what I mean? He basically, this is his idea of a gym membership, and that is the most Jesse Lingard thing.
Well, the big complaint from West Ham fans has been that they've obviously got a load of money in, and they've not really spent it on anyone.
Wow.
And they pulled in Edson Alvarez, didn't they, from Ajax, and now they've pulled in Ward-Prowse, which is another kind of terrible prediction by me, by the way, which has gone under the radar. I've had so many bad shouts recently that people have forgotten about the Ward-Prowse one. I was expecting to get that yesterday, so on the Ramble, but I didn't get it. I said he ain't got the nuts to move from Southampton. Yeah. Bang, 30 mil. Back to the Premier League.
Yeah. He's my tip now for Premier League Player of the Season.
Oh, good. Well, listen, I don't know. West Ham fans will probably be on one hand quite uninspired if Lingard was to go there, but at the same time he had a lovely time, didn't he?
Literally, get the band back together.
He was like an absolute unplayable at times for West Ham.
He nearly got a call up for the Euros. That's how good he was.
Yeah, because of people like you.
No, because of
on the stump, the speaker's corner, screaming about him.
You can find me there every Sunday afternoon.
You like those kids who just absolutely love KSI and Logan Paul.
I am not like them.
You're instead of drinking a bottle of Prime, you're wearing your Jesse Lingard. You're wearing your J-Lings cap.
Dreadful way to end the show.
I saw someone on the tube not that long ago with a J-Lings baseball cap on.
Oh, that's all right. Don't mind that.
It wasn't you, and it wasn't J-Lings himself. So
I saw a bloke on the London Underground today wearing a Childish Gambino t-shirt, and I nearly sort of said to him, "Oi, do you think he should have been opening the World Cup as well?" But he had his earphones on and he was like miming away to himself, and I thought,
Donaldson's got such a checkered past with music. And I ever tell you that once I was talking about this on the Luke and Pete show the other day. He asked me to DJ with him, and he said, "Don't bother bringing any of your own music. You can use some of my CDs." And in his CD collection, he had like a load of Lost Prophet CDs.
Oh, no.
I know. You're going to DJ them, are you? You're going to play that out, are you?
You have a go at me for quoting the USA for Africa gang.
Who wrote it?
It was Lionel Richie, and he co-wrote it with another famous pop star. And then you bring that up on this round. That is despicable.
People can't see this because it's a podcast, but I don't think you should be doing those that moonwalk while you're making that point.
Right, we're leaving now. You have disgraced yourself and your entire neighbourhood. Right, thank you very much for listening to today's Ramble React.
Who's been more disgraceful, me or Man United?
Well, to be fair, even with that, referencing that band, I think it's still Man United. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Football Ramble. In the meantime, find us on X, or Twitter as some people still call it.
X.com/Football Ramble.
He was the only person in that meeting, wasn't it? The old musketeer. Yeah. What an absolute knobhead. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram and YouTube at Football Ramble. And remember to subscribe on your podcast app. There we are, everybody. Man United are up and running, but I would argue so are Wolves, because they should be given a bonus point or something for that. Gary O'Neill, come on, son. England 2026, it's all yours. Thank you very much, Luke Moore.
I'm disappointed with that final closing statement now, I'll be totally honest with you. But yeah, goodbye. Thanks for listening.
Always got to think about the bigger picture. Yeah. And England is the bigger picture. Lots of love. Later. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.